Alright, as promised, I'm going to show you how to modify your Gigabyte Aorus GTX 1080ti 11g. The first things you're going to need is you're going to need your water cooler. This is the SLI Hybrid 3120. This is the one that I already have installed on one of my video cards. I'm going to be installing this one on my second video card. I'm going to show you how to do that. Also, I'm going to be modifying there are some chips on the video card that after you do this modification that should have some heatsink on it. Now, I couldn't get the little pieces that I wanted, but I did manage to get my hands on some bulk stuff. So I'll be cutting these to the correct length so that I can put the heat sinks on, and we'll go through that when the time comes. And here we have some Arctic silver. It's called alumina. This is a non-conductive heat sink compound. And this is what you want. You don't want anything that's going to be conductive to electricity. Obviously, you're dealing with electronics. It's spelt A-L-U-M as in mother, I-N-A. Okay? Arctic alumini. Alumini? No. Well, you'll figure it out. Okay? So, and that comes in two parts. And it's a good idea, too, that when you do get this open, that you take the paper off so that you can actually see how much adhesive that you have. And you want to really go easy on that. You don't need much to glue a heat sink down. From what I understand, the stuff's pretty good. And you may need an additional fan if you're limited in space in your case. In this case, I've got a thinner fan. Hopefully, this will work inside of my case. I haven't quite tested it yet. You might be also interested in purchasing a 3-pin fan splitter. That may come in handy. I don't know if I'm going to need it actually until I actually get in there and see what's going on. And we'll see. And the other thing that you need is a little tool kit such as this, for really small screws, because the screws that are on the Gigabyte Aorus are really, really small, and it's going to take tools like this to get the fans off, because we got to remove the fans and we got to remove the heat sink on the video card. Okay, so that's it for now. Alright, hello again, and I just wanted to show you how this looks right now. Move in. See, the top card has been modified for water cooling, and the bottom one hasn't, and that's the one that we're going to do today. Now, just a word of note here, before I modded it and I had these two in here, this card here, this one here, the top one, would hit 90 Celsius, and that was because the gap between these cards take up 3 spaces, and so the gap between these two cards in here was like, that thick. I mean, it's like, it just could not breathe. And as you can see, I got some space in there now. And that card barely goes over 55 when I'm running it. I'm going to be adding some heat sinks to that card today, and I'll show you that card. I'll show you both cards after they're been modified. And this one here is the one that we're going to be taking out, and I'll be showing you that card and showing you just how massive it is compared to the other one. It's just insane, the amount of heat sink and fans that they put on this video card. It's quite enormous, and it really doesn't cool the card that good. They have some serious problems with heat with these cards. and that's what I'm addressing. Okay, so I'll back you up. Okay, so let's have a look at this video card. This is what will be cut out of this. We're going to make use of this. This will go to cover some components to keep them cool on the one side of the card. And just to give you an idea, this thing is absolutely massive. Take a look at this. This thing it's heavy. There are 3 fans in here. In order to get this off, there are screws behind the fans. There's 3 behind each fan. You got to take those out. And then there are these little ones in the back here. This one here that's in the back here is very difficult to get at. But you know, with a little bit of work you can get at it and get it off. And then there are access holes to the other 2 on the other side here. And then this whole piece will come off. Then once this whole piece, this piece here, the fan part comes off, you'll be left with the heat sink. And the heat sink screws are on the back, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 altogether. Okay, and you want to make sure that you keep these 3 right here, these 3 little ones. I don't know if you can see that. There's 3 little ones here at the back. Okay, do not lose those. They're very important because you're going to be using them later on to attach this back onto the video card, because this is where your fan's going to go. This will help keep things nice and cool. So that being said, I'm going to begin the modifications of this video card, and then I'm going to be going out to my shed, and I'm going to be cutting my heat sinks here. And there's 11 of them per card. So you can buy them. I think the correct size will be 20 millimeters by 16 millimeters, and say 6 millimeters high or 7 millimeters high would be sufficient. I'm sure that this is more than sufficient. This is a 7 millimeter by 20, and then of course it's the full length. So you have to cut it yourself. This was significantly cheaper. You can get these heat sinks, but you have to wait to get them from Japan. And good luck getting them from Japan, because they are not from Japan, China. They're just almost impossible to get your hands on, the little ones. So if you're interested in buying it in bulk here, you can get this. Shipped to you fairly easily. Now I got 2 of these, which is more than enough to cover the 22 memory chips on the video card, and I got that for about $32 Canadian. And by the way, it got shipped to me within 2 days, so I was very happy about that. Okay, so I'm gonna get on with the modding of the card. So once you have the heat sink off, you break out the hacksaw and you just hack this right off. Can you see that? You just hack it right off. This has to be modified a little further for me. I just realized that that these pipes here are sitting too close to the video card board, and I can't get my my heat sinks to fit underneath to get at the 2 memory chips that are on there. So I'm going to run the hacksaw right down that line right there and cut the rest of those tubes off. And it's okay to leave those tubes open. I mean, I don't understand why they close them up in the first place, because they trap heat, and as far as I'm concerned, they should be open to release the heat. You know, it collects the heat and then it should be released. Leaving them closed is just you know, when you take a pipe and you heat it up, and there's no way for the air to escape. Isn't that just like a pressure cooker? Am I getting my physics right there? Anyway, it's open. I don't have to worry about a pressure cooker on this card. So that's what I'm going to go do now. I'm going to remove the fan and start chopping. Alright, I found a shortcut to making this a lot easier to take apart. I mean, the first time I took it apart, I mean, I really took it apart. If you just undo the screws from the back, the 7 screws I mentioned earlier, just undo those. Those will give you access, okay, to the 4 screws that hold on to the fan assembly. So you can actually take the fan assembly off in a single piece. The first time I modded this, I took the fans off. I didn't really know how to take it apart, so I just started removing screws until it was completely apart. But this way you can keep the fan intact in case you want to put the heat sinks back on for whatever reason. But be advised though, this modification will void your warranty, at least as far as the fan and the heatsink is concerned. Although it does not actually affect the video card, this modification. Some people might consider it, possibly not voiding your warranty, simply because the function of the video card is not being affected. Just the cooling. That's what we're doing with this. So as you can see, I mean, this thing weighs, weighs a fair bit, and it's really bulky. So we say goodbye to that. And then of course we're left with the video card. And as you can see, it is, look how thin that is. And this card takes up 3 slots. Not for long. Okay. Now here's the heatsink that came off of it. There's lots of copper on here. Again, I was mentioning, the fact that the copper is actually sealed. I really don't understand the principle behind keeping that sealed. There should be air holes in it to allow the hot air to escape that gets trapped inside of the heat sinks, inside of the copper. I think it's just for aesthetics. Other than that, I'd say it defeats the purpose of actually trying to keep the card cool. But this is definitely going to be cut. And what I suggest you do is that when you have the heat sink out like this, is take some saran wrap or a plastic bag or something, and you want to tape off the entire area that you're going to be working on. You don't want any slivers from when you go to cut this with a hacksaw. You don't want any slivers anywhere, especially on these little heatsink pads that are on the back. Okay? So be sure to do that. I'll show you what it looks like after I've got it taped up. Okay, so I just used a regular sandwich baggie to tape this off. The part that I'm going to be keeping, which is this part here, not this copper side. And this line right here, this aluminum line, that is the line that I'm going to be cutting along. As you can see with my other one, I cut it way ahead there because I didn't think I would need to, but you have to cut it along that line. So both of these are going to have to be modified. Okay, so that I can get the RAM heat sinks to fit. So right across this line right here, the dividing line, and that's a nasty cut because it's going through all the heatsink pipes. So make sure you got a good sharp hacksaw so that you can saw through that fairly easy. It takes about 5 minutes. And I am ready to take this out to the shed and begin sawing. So here we have a video card with all the heat sinks attached. Those are custom cut. I managed to, out of that one piece of heat sink, I was able to cut out all the pieces for both cards. So one piece is sufficient. So just to let you know, and also I'll also be letting you know where you can get this in the States relatively cheap. Okay, so now we're going to attach the water blocks and get her going. Okay, so here's the video card now. It's been completely modified for water cooling. It's got the heat sinks on the, which I believe are the RAM chips, and I reused half of the original heat sink and attached a fan. It's important to use this fan header here on the card. Has a check. When you get this card installed and you fire it up, this fan here should turn. If it does not turn, you have to move this fan header to this location here. That's the main fan header for the video card. That's one that's going to power this fan, and the temperature gauges for the fans with your software to regulate the speed of this fan. That is the fan header for that. And then there's a separate power supply, and that one attaches to the pump fan, this one here. So there's a splitter on this one here. Okay, and that's what it looks like. Both cards will be look like that. I'll show you what it looks like in the system once I've got both cards installed, and then we'll do a little testing and I'll show you the temperatures. Alright, as I mentioned before, there is a copper plate right here on the back. Make sure to put a healthy dose of heatsink compound on that, because this is the back plate that goes on the back, and then you attach the water pump onto the front, but this is the back plate. This back plate does not sit flush with the copper back plate of the Aorus. So to ensure that we get good contact here and good thermal dissipation here from that copper, we want to make sure that it's really covered quite well. And the other thing worth mentioning is to really try to not make a mess of it, because this part is the most difficult, because you have to hold this part on at the same time as the water pump and without sliding them around, and then you've got spring-loaded screws. It's a real job. So just a word of caution when you're doing it, and some advice: just take your time and do it right, and you shouldn't have any trouble. And shortly after that, I'll have it mounted into the system, and you can have a look-see to see what it looks like.